welcome to yet another edition of Margaret Regrets Ever Making a TBR game in the first place. Hello my lovely friends, it's Margaret. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to see if I fall flat on my face because of last month's TBR, and then we're going to do it all again and pick out what books I'm going to be reading for this month. If you've been through the spiel about Fablen before, timestamp here where you can skip to the actual part of the TBR, but if you are new, Fablen is my role-playing TBR adventure game that I came up with. I'll have the original video linked up top. The way it works is you create a character and then you pull prompts every month or quarter, however you want to do it, but you pull those prompts determine what books you are going to be reading, and you try and read all of those books, and if you don't read the books, there are consequences, many of which I may be facing today, in this moment. Well, not this moment, but like in a few moments. I am playing the half-dwarf scholar, Magdalene Embercloak, throughout this. The fact that she is a half-dwarf means that I have to read one sci-fi a month. The fact that she is a scholar means that I have to pull 8 quests every month. She is a prodigy means that I have to read a book that is at least 250 pages. Thank goodness, we caught a lucky break there. And then she also wields a mace, which means that I need to have at least one backlist book on my TBR. We are defining backlist book as something that was not released in the last year. This month, we are adding on the added difficulty of me trying to do both Realmathon and the magical Readathon as well. I thought about just not doing my TBR game and just picking 8 books, but like, we're going places with this story. I want to know what happens next. If you've never heard about them before, both Orillium and Realmathon are month-long readathons. Orillium, or the Magical Readathon, is put on by G from Book Roast. It is a readathon where we have a spring semester and a fall semester, so April and August, the 2 A's. You sit down and you pick books based on the curriculum that you're going to be doing. This is my second attempt at jumping in with Orillium. I did not have the brain space to do it the last time I attempted it, and I don't remember any of the stuff I made up for my character then. I'll deal with figuring out all of that stuff this time around later. What you need to know is that I have chosen to be a necromancer as my career. Don't ask me why I am suddenly drawn to necromancers. I don't understand it. I don't know why they're in my games. They're in the characters I'm creating. It just felt like it was going to be a good time. Since I am going for necromancer, I do have to finish 8 courses, which I guess that works out. Those 8 courses are shape-shifting, which means I have to read a book with a wolf on the cover. In some way, it can be like an image, the title, the author's name. I also have to pass animal studies. For this one, I flipped a coin. And heads, you have to read nonfiction. Tails, you read fiction. I got tails. We're all good. The third course I have to complete is inscription, and for that, I have to grab the book from the highest shelf on my bookshelf. Good news, my physical TBR is in fact on the technically it's on the top, but that's the highest shelf. I also have to pass spells and incantations, which means you have to read a book that is 389 to 415 pages, so somewhere in that range. There's also conjuration. I have to read a book that is recommended by a friend. I am not going to be telling you what book it is, but if it slots into any of my Fablen quests, I'll tell you it's the secret book, but like, I'm keeping it a secret for reasons. What are we on? We're on 6. Course 6 that I have to pass is restoration. I have to shuffle some books and point with my eyes closed. Second to last one that I have to pass is lore, which is to read a book with a map, which will cross over to Realmathon. That'll be fantastic. And then the final class that I have to pass is demonology, which is where I have to read a book that has been compared to one of my favorite books. So what I did for this one, I didn't go and like look for a video. I just went through my Goodreads of the books that were on my top 10 for 2022, and you know how Goodreads has that readers who liked this book also may enjoy this book. I just went through there and I found books that I'm already planning on reading that are similar to compared to the books by Goodreads. I have a list here of the books that might work for that. Realmathon is much easier to explain. It is put on by Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy, and the basic gist is there are 4 different realms, and you are trying to get your realm to be the top realm, and there are a couple of ways you can help your realm get to the top. You can either add points to your realm, so you read and you add points, or you can take points away from someone else's realm. I'm going to be repping Enya because, I mean, it's the fantasy team, and I'm reading so much fantasy right now. I have so many fantasy books that I need to read. Also, I do believe Enya is where most of my friends are, and I am nothing if not desperate for people's love and attention. I'm joking. I'm an introvert. I like to be places where there are already people that I know. Makes everything so much easier for me, especially if we are talking about a large crowd, or in this case, large Discord server. Discord melts my brain sometimes. Now it is time for the part that I personally have been dreading. I pulled quests last month. I completed 3 of them out of the 8. So there's 5 that we will be rolling consequences for. Before we get into the full check-in and see how Magdalene is doing or will do, I do need to let you guys know I did make a couple of swaps just so I wouldn't have completely and utterly, like it was going to be 8 books. We were O for O. For the quest Journey into Darkness, where you're supposed to read a book with dark themes, I was originally supposed to read Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyon. I am reading the book, I'm just not finished it yet. I maybe should have been a little bit more judicious with my reading time and maybe started it earlier in the month. So this got swapped out for School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. For the quest Discover Ancient Runes, which was to read a book that is primarily made out of text, I was supposed to read Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. This was fantastic. I just did not finish it or read most of it until April 1st, which was yesterday, so it can't count for March. This is getting swapped out with Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker. Super cute. Highly recommend it. Like, I had to get on shorts and rave about this. You're not here for that, though. This is TBR check-in time. Let's focus, Margaret. And then the final swap was for the prompt riddle contest with the bridge troll, where you're supposed to read a book that you think has an ugly cover. I chose Eye of the World for that by Robert Jordan. I still plan on getting to this. I just need to finish some other vlogs before I can finish this because I do want to vlog my experience. I swapped this out for January 15th by Rachel Swirsky. I did read a lot in March. I just didn't read any of the books that I decided to put on the TBR. I started a couple, but none of them have been finished, so shall we get into where we were with Magdalene Embercloak? Now, the last time that we checked in with Magdalene and her party, they were in the outskirts of the city of Wandermere. They had gone there based on some clues that told them that a recent death back in their hometown of Firewater might be linked to something happening in Wandermere. As they were in the midst of this good deed, though, they did find out that it wasn't just the halfling couple who had been affected by these raids of goblins. The farmers in the countryside outside of Wandermere were reporting that they were waking up in the middle of the night to find their farms being burned down or their livestock being stolen. The culprits are believed to be a clan of goblins that are currently holed up in the old mines on the Wandermere side of the Dragonspine Mountains. And so we pick up with Magdalene and her party as they travel inside of this old abandoned mine. The upper levels of this mine do not appear to be inhabited, but every now and then you'll see just the small signs that you might find if someone was hiding deeper down in the depths. So Magdalene and her party do continue down into the lower levels where they are confronted by a fork in the path. And here, my friends, we come to our very first consequence of the day. The way the consequences work is I'm going to roll a d20. If I get a 6 or higher, I am able to escape the consequences of failing the quest. However, if I get a 5 or lower, I have to take whatever consequence is imposed on me for failing that quest. The consequence for failing this quest, if I roll lower than a 6, is going to be that I will have to start the quest over with a new book. So I will have to finish this quest in addition to the 8 that I pull, unless I am lucky enough to pull it again for April, because it has been added back in. But let's see what this ends up being. That is a 14. Now, not every party is fortunate enough to have a member that is as skilled in tracking as Siobhan Windclearer, but our druid is able to whip up a little bit of natural magic and discover that the left fork is the fork they want if they are looking for these goblin bandits. Based on the fact that the party is able to find several small bunkers as they go through, it seems that the miners probably spent several days underneath the mountain as they mined things, and so our party sets up in one of these small bunkers. Now, Magdalene is starting to realize that she gets a little uneasy so far underground and is a bit too restless when it comes time to lay down to rest. She finally gives up tossing and turning and decides that she will get up and take a little stroll and hopefully be back in time for her watch. And as she is going through the nearest tunnels, kind of cataloging, not getting too far just in case she runs into anything, she does catch light of something on the ground. And as she lifts her lantern, looking down at the ground, she discovers that she is looking at a ritual of some sort. She sets the lantern down, pulls out her book, and starts sketching with her charcoal the circle of runes, trying to note down as much information as she can. Obviously, something is up here. Maybe it's connected to the goblin attacks, maybe it's connected to something else. Once she's finished copying down the runes, she does go back to camp, and eventually she does manage to fall asleep before it is her turn for watch. It's not a great night of rest, but she manages. It's enough. From there, the party does travel further down beneath the mountain, and they do start to find evidence that something or someone is living in the dark tunnels of the mine. And here is where we come to consequence number 2. The consequence for failing the long journey quest is that I will have to add 1 quest to my quest load if I fail this roll. So hopefully I don't fail this roll. Let's see. Not great. It's an 8, but it's not a 5 or lower. So we're good. The party is able to continue unmolested for the most part. However, as they come to a wide, gaping chasm, they find the bridge guarded once again by a troll. After the last troll, however, our protagonist did brush up on some riddles of varying degrees of difficulty, and so the party is able to pass rather easily. To the frustration of our troll on the bridge, our party knows the answer to its riddle, and they are able to pass unmolested. That is the last of the ones that we have passed, and so now we'll see. One of these, we're going to be in trouble. As our party crosses the bridge, they start to hear the sounds, the noises of habitation, the various, it's loud, it's cacophonous, the voices echo around them in a language that none of them quite speak. Our party does what they can to enhance their stealth and slowly creep in the direction of the voices and find themselves facing a small goblin party. This party is made up of a dozen or so goblins, maybe a little bit less. One of them is a little bit taller and bigger than the others. This larger goblin wears a circlet of mangled iron across his bald head. The consequence for this quest is that I have to roll a d6 and then add 10 times that number of pages to a book that I am going to be reading. Yeah, it'll make more sense if I have to do it, but let's see. And that's a 10. We're good. We're doing okay. We are doing okay. Uthiel, being a dwarf, does know more than he comfortably would like to know about goblins, given that they often find themselves fighting over the same kinds of territories, and recognizes that this circlet marks this larger goblin as a goblin king. Our party, realizing that they have by chance stumbled upon the leader of this clan that may be terrorizing the countryside, decides that maybe they will try to negotiate. The rest of the party spreads out quietly as their leader, Catherine Greycastle, reveals herself and asks to parley. The goblins are surprised to find this newcomer in their midst, but the Goblin King holds up his hand, staying the swords of his men, as he and Catherine have a discussion. The Goblin King reveals that he and his subjects have been brought to these mountains under the thrall of a sorcerer. He and his people would happily leave if they were able to escape this spell, but it is not the type of spell that can be broken easily, and not without knowing who it was that cast the spell, and the sorcerer came to his people in disguise. The king, recognizing that they have been surrounded by an adventuring party that was probably sent to drive him and his people from the mountain, offers Catherine a deal. If she and her people can find whoever it is in Wandermere that holds the tethers to their spell, he and his people will happily go back to their homeland. Here we come to our fourth and penultimate consequence. Now, the consequence for failing this quest is that I cannot start any new quests until I have finished the Atlas Paradox. That is not the worst quest to roll poorly on. I have been so lucky. That is a 6. We're good. We're good. I wonder what is the I am worried about the consequence. Now it does take a bit of it does take a moment of convincing, since goblins and dwarfs are natural enemies, but both Uthiel and Magdalene recognize that these are people in trouble and are not acting out of their own will. And so the party agrees that they will add this to their list of things to do in the city of Wandermere. It's getting to be a rather long list. He also offers to show them a quicker way out of the mountain in the morning. And so Magdalene's party do follow him and his guards back to the goblin camp deep down at the foot of the mountain, and it seems to be a small self-sustaining community. There are pens with these stolen animals and all of those things, but they also have set up small little farms where they are growing various lichens and mushrooms and things like that to help sustain their people. And that is where we are going to come to our final consequence. Yes, I took a little bit of liberty. They are at a goblin farm, not a halfling farm, but I really just didn't didn't need to go to the halfling farm for a third time. Alright, our final consequence is that if I fail this roll, I will have to choose a book that is 50 pages longer than the book I did not finish to fulfill a quest next time around. So, haha! That's an 18. 0 consequences. It has never felt so good to be bad. Or at least so good to fail to my TBR. It's fine, it's fine. And so we leave Magdalene and her friends in the midst of the goblin camp, and it's time to see what is going to happen next. Okay, so that's great. We didn't add anything. There's nothing extra that I have to do. I can just pull a quest. Well, I do have to figure out Orillium and all of that, but it's fine. We'll be fine. Please admire my little plant. Look at it. Look at it. It is so cute. It is going to eventually be jasmine. I mean, it's a jasmine plant, and eventually there will be jasmine flowers on here. We have our quests. I have added new quests into this cup. They will be linked in the Fablen document down below. I have also gone ahead and added back in some older quests that I think line up. I have also gone ahead and in here added older quests that I think line up with my goals and what I'm wanting to do this month with my reading, or in subsequent months, or that will help make a good story. Like just filling in some of the blanks that are in there. There is one I will have to put back in if I pull it first, but let's see what the first quest is going to be. Run into a den with monsters, read a book with a monster on the cover. If I do not finish this quest, I must read 2 books of my required genre next month. And I know exactly which book this is going to be. We are going to be going with one of my favorite books from 2022. I wanted to, the new book is coming out in May, and I really wanted to reread this book. Like, I just, like, have been wanting, and I just keep waiting because I want to reread it as close as possible to the new book. But I've been wanting to reread this book almost since I finished it, and that is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. We are going to be counting this guy right here for the monster on the cover. It is my prompt, so it counts. This I'm going to be using for the animal studies prompt on for Orillium. It's a fiction book. That's a very open, general prompt. Could I technically probably use it for conjuration? I think, like, I could use it for book recommended by a friend, maybe, because a bunch of my friends recommend it, or I could use it for a book compared to a favorite, because I have compared this to, like, if I really wanted to stretch it, I could, because I compared this to my favorite fictional couple of all time, Batman and Catwoman. It also is going to be covering a few prompts for Realmathon. I'm going to be able to get at least 21 points for this without adding in any page or like genre bonuses. Where is the list? It's going to count for a book with a source of light on the cover because it does have the moon on the cover. It will count for spell your name on the cover because my name it's literally there. Like, I couldn't not, literally there. I couldn't not use this for that prompt. The other ones that it is going to count for is for a retelling. This is a retelling of the Goose Girl myth, focusing on the maid in that myth rather than the princess. It is also going to count for underrated book because not enough, like, I have a couple of friends that are talking about, but not enough of you people are talking about this book. I'm just saying. It is a failure of BookTube as a whole that this book is not being talked about on a regular basis. I want to see it on everyone's feeds, and I don't. Sorry, that should be plus 22 because I did my math wrong. The final one that is going to hit is Cross to Enemy Territory because it is a YA. Prompt number 2. I guess that one works. Under the table mission, read a book for a secret TBR or project. Okay, great. Which one of you is next? So for this one, we're so close to being done with this secret project where I'll actually be able to put the video up and tell everyone about it. But for this one, I'm going to go with From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is for a project that I have been working on for months. It's fine. It's fine. I don't know much about it. It's about Poppy, I think. Yeah, it's about Poppy and like 2 other dudes. I've heard a lot about this book. We're going to switch things around because I'm actually going to go ahead and use Little Thieves for conjuration, and then I'm going to use this for animal studies just because that's how it's gonna work out. And then it does also fulfill prompts for Realmathon, which are, hold on, I wrote these down for some of these that I knew I wanted to read. It fulfills the prompt to read a dark cover. It fulfills the prompt for a TBR vet because it's been on my TBR for a while. And then it also fulfills the prompt for read a book that I did not buy. and that will be taking a whopping 3 to 6 points from another team to be decided at a later date. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know the names of most of the other teams, so let's go ahead. We'll go for a fat one. Encounter with the bad guy. So for this, I am going to, the goal is to either negotiate or fight. So to figure out which one I'm going to do, I'm going to flip a coin. If it's heads, I get to negotiate, which is read a book with less than 300 pages. And if it is tails, I have to read a book that is 500 pages or more, because we are fighting. Actually, rather than going over there to flip a coin, I'm just going to use my handy-dandy technology. Flip a coin for me. Heads! If I fail this, I have to add 1 quest to my quest load. I know what I'm picking. I'm going to be going with book 2 in the Murderbot Diaries, Artificial Condition. This will be another one that is going to take points from the other team, because I already know that this will count for like the Block of Realms energy, which is to read a book with a word associated with another realm, and that's like artificial, I would feel, is associated with science fiction. So whatever team is the sci-fi team, I'm going to be taking at least 6 points from y'all. And then that counts as a dark cover, right? This will count for multiple prompts. Like, it's a book I didn't buy, it's a book with a dark cover. There's plenty of stuff on here that I will be able to use it for, to remove points from another team. Prompt number 4, it's going to be searching for clues. Choose a book that shares some details with the last book you picked. If I do not finish this book, I have to pick a book to finish in X days. Oh, this is a new consequence. So basically, one of the books that I pick for May, I will have to finish in X days, or I will automatically fail that quest. I put that you can roll a D6 or a D8, just because if you I'm trying to limit the number of dice people have to have. Speaking of, this counts for Demonology, I think, but compared to my favorite, because it was compared to Kaiju Preservation Society, which was one of my favorites of last year. Okay, so there are a couple ways we go. We go with a book that's about a soldier. We could go with another science fiction. We could go with another short book, because I know that there are a couple books that I'll probably want to read for peace talks. Let's see what we can find that fits an Orillium prompt. I'm going to need my stool for this one. So we're going to go with The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. The way that we were connecting this to this is that they are both outlaws, in a sense. They're actually much more, their stories have a much closer trajectory. I just was going with the outlaw bit, but their stories actually have a much closer trajectory based on the blurb. Basically, this is about Alvin Scribe. He is an outlaw, and he is being hired to, he's seeing visions of a demonic apocalypse, and he is also fighting under the command of Lady Evandine Corleen. This is going to be counting for lore for Orillium, because it does have a map in the front, and then it also is going to count, hold on, without any page count or anything, because this is also a fantasy, this is going to steal 10 points from, or remove 10 points from somewhere, because it is going to cover the prompts for read a dark cover, read a TBR veteran, read a book that I didn't buy. This was sent to me. And then also a book with an illustrated spine. I am choosing so many thick books. We need to get some not so thick books in on this next round. I think, don't you? I think we do. That's 2. I want this one. Okay. Oh, and this one's backwards. No way forward. Read the final book in a series. If I don't finish this book, I must read 2 books of my required genre next month. I was planning on getting to this last month, so I might as well just throw it on here this one. I'm going to regret this so much, especially since many of these I'm going to have to read physically. But we're going to go with Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, because I need to read it. I want to know how this ends, and it is the only final book in a series that I actually currently own that I have not read. This is the final book in the Last Hours trilogy. It is the follow-up trilogy to the Infernal Devices trilogy, which had some of my favorite characters and is my favorite series that Cassandra Clare has ever written. And so this is following the characters in that book, follows their kids. This isn't going to count for Orillium at all, but it does count for quite a few prompts on Realmathon from the negative side of things. This is a 2023 release. It is also a book that plays with, or I'm assuming that it's going to play with time, because the first two books have both had multiple timelines. It's also a book written by an author who uses a pseudonym, and then it is a book that has a dysfunctional family in here or two. I'm still mad about that, honestly, because this anyways, that is a negative 16 points to somebody's realm without even getting into the page count or the fact that it's a fantasy book. Here is this one. Questing party must make a choice. Choose your next read through a poll on social media. If I fail this, I will roll disadvantage on all consequence rolls. We have two options here. Both of them are options that I know can get me an audio. I can get an audiobook. One of them is Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. This has been on my TBR for so long at this point. The other one is Year of the Reaper by Micaiah Lucier. Both of these came from the top shelf of both my owned bookshelf and my library bookshelf. So these are the two books that I will be putting up as a poll on probably YouTube and or Twitter, one of the two. Maybe Instagram, I don't know, but I will be putting up a poll for these guys, and one of them will win. This sounds almost like a desert western type steampunk thing with Jen in it. This one I know is based on medieval history and kind of has something to do with the Black Death, which is, you know, kind of my jam. Not the Black, does that make sense? It's a thing I know a lot about. Probably end up taking points from another team because they both already have multiple things on them that lend them to doing that. Second to last prompt that we have to pull right here. This is a new one. Listening to tavern gossip, read a book that people are talking about. If I fail this quest, I have to add pages to a quest. The number of pages is going to be equal to a d6 times 10. We're going to be choosing from one of three books so that we can do the shuffle and pick, but they're very different books. I know I can get an audiobook of this. I've been meaning to reread this, and I don't know. I think I can get an audiobook of this, but we've got What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. We've got The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This would be a reread. And then we have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. I need to read this as soon as possible. Okay, we're going to shuffle these. And then randomly, without looking at what I'm putting in what book, put these in there. And then, where is my, there it is, we're going to roll a d6. 1 and 4 means I read book 1. 2 and 5 means I read book 2, or 3 and 6 means I read book 6. That's 5. It was 2 and 5, correct? So book 2. Which one of these is book 2? I don't know. That's book 3, so not that one. Aha! Good, a short one. And I do believe I can get an audiobook of this as well. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is a horror, I believe. So this is a horror. It is a retelling of Poe's, it was The Fall of the House of Usher. Yeah, The Fall of the House of Usher. It's about a soldier. He goes back to a friend's, ancestral country because the friend is dying, and they find possessed animals and horrifying fungus. So this is going to fulfill for restoration for sure for Orillium. Okay, so this is going to be taking a 23 whole points because it's not going to give me any bonuses, I don't think, unless it turns out to be a fantasy type, like a fantasy horror genre blend, but I haven't read it yet, so I can't tell you. All right, and the final prompt is going to be, I have no idea how any of this is going to make a cohesive narrative. A suspicious merchant. Read a book you purchase. Okay, what do I still need to complete for Orillium is the big question. Wolf on the cover. I have not purchased any books with wolves on the cover. This is a problem. We're gonna go have a look at our that's a lion. Why couldn't it be a lion on the cover? That's a lion. It can be nonfiction, but it's a lion. That's a raven. Why do I have so many things with ravens on them? No wolves. No wolf. This has a skull on the cover. That's not helpful. Wolf on here, there is not a wolf on there. There's a sword though, as it turns out. I have one book that I own that has a wolf on the cover, but I did not purchase it. So it can't count for this prompt, but I may still get to it this month because I need it for Orillium, and that is, that's A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. I want to say that this is a follow-up series to his original series, so I may need to read some other books first before I read this. So I have to double check on this, but this might be the thing I read. It might not. I have so many books that have ravens on the cover. Why couldn't it have been a raven G? Why could it not have been a raven? The book that I chose for book that you've purchased is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. So there are missing girls involved. A dude is going back home. He's been summoned home to help find these missing girls. And, there are elemental spirits. Oh, he's going back at the behest of his childhood nemesis, Adara. Okay, so this is going to count for book with a map in it. That adds 1 point. It's also going to count for an underrated book. It's going to count for a new to me author. And it's going to count for a title with an emotion because, according to Taylor Swift, Enchanted is an emotion. So that'll be a plus 14, not counting the page counts. So this is the point where we realize we might be, we did miss an Orillium prompt, which was to read a book that the target length is 389 to 415. So I need to find one more book that is around 400 pages. Here's the Cruel Prince. Come through for me, Jude. No! Wait. With the bonus material, this comes to exactly 389 pages. I've been wanting to reread this because, the new book for the new series came out, but, I wanted to reread these guys before we got to that. And this one hasn't been tabbed up, my friends. It needs to be tabbed. Okay, so, oh, God. Oh, my God. I wasn't ready for that. Oh, mistakes were made. Here are the books. Here's what we're reading. Oh boy. One of them, we'll be removing one of them from the TBR. I need to think about my life for a bit now. That's fine, that's fine. We're gonna read it. We're just gonna read a lot of audiobooks for Realmathon. I would love to know what y'all are doing in the month of April. Are you doing Realmathon? Are you doing Orillium? Like, what's going on? Or what team are you on for Realmathon? Because, if you're not Team Enya, unsubscribe. I'm kidding. I'm not like that. I mean, I will be like that during April, but then we can be friends again in May. But we can't be friends until after May because I am trying to end your realm, okay? I'm trying to end your realm. Please answer in the comments. Is it too late in my YouTube career? Is 5 years too many years in for me to just start going, I don't have an outro? Because I don't know how to outro videos anymore at all. Didn't really go into any of my thoughts about the books that I read for last month. So that will be coming out as a wrap-up. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you are interested in those. If you don't want to wait for more of my bookish thoughts, though, I will have whatever my most recent video is right over here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up. Happy reading, my friends. I will see you next time when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye! I was looking into my forcing laughter, faking smiles, same old time.